Hey, welcome to Top Shot Tech. It's been a little while since I've done one of these where I've kind of dug into a product in this way, but Wiz has really caught my attention recently, and it's probably been a little bit hard to miss it if you're kind of follow what's happening in the security industry. There's certainly been a lot of buzz around Wiz and where the company's going. So I thought I should quickly pull together a video and learn a little bit more about it myself. And in fact, I'm a little bit late to this party. One of my colleagues told me about a year ago that I had to go check out Wiz, but better late than never, as they say. So what is the big deal with Wiz? So just jumping straight into that, why is there so much buzz? Well, firstly, Wiz has claimed to be, or is claimed that Wiz is the fastest growing software company ever, in that they scaled from 1 million to 100 million ARR in only 18 months. And further to that, they've kept on going. So I think they're at about over 350 million in ARR now. So they're actually, Wiz is winning customers, and that, 350 million ARR is not an insignificant sum. We've seen a lot of probably cloud security products being purchased for around, the 300, 600 million mark in the past. And, they certainly didn't have revenue anywhere like that. So, it's quite nice actually to see a company that's got a lot of revenue and a lot of strong revenue growth. And this is after, they're only 4 years old as well, I think, which is probably the other key factor. That's, quite an astonishing rate of growth in that time. But probably the other piece that I think is maybe more important and supports the other factors is Wiz is as a company and a product that's really stayed on mission and hasn't stopped too soon. And what I mean by that is the whole kind of cloud security market, if I call it that, and in fact, this sort of round of products that we saw released in this area called CSPM, or Cloud Security Posture Management products, they're really focused on configuration management of your cloud environment and whether or not your configuration was secure. They a lot of them got to a point where they got purchased and development of the product stopped, or they, ended up in network companies where the way they were selling and who was selling them, and particularly, people who were used to probably installing firewalls now were selling CSPM products as part of enterprise agreements, which kind of killed them and killed, I think, a lot of the development. And it felt very much like the CASB industry where, there were lots of startups doing some really cool stuff, and then they'd get swallowed up before they really got to a point of maturity. And then unfortunately, often the development stops. So with Wiz, we haven't seen that. They keep on going and they keep growing their platform. And it's, quite a comprehensive platform as I've discovered. So leaping forward, I actually went and did partner technical accreditation for Wiz. So I went and learned something new, which it's been a little while since I've done tech creds, but I went and did and when I say tech creds, it's, the partner course as opposed to it being an engineering course. So, but, still it was good to jump in, and it gave me the ability to actually go and play with the platform as well and have a bit of a poke around. So I guess getting into a bit more of the technical details, what I discovered from this was really the first and foremost, one quite key thing around how Wiz operates is they've got a great database model behind it, which, we probably don't think about the data structures behind these tools very often. But I think when as I started to understand more about Wiz, because I'd probably kind of in the past thought, it's just another CSPM product, whereas, it's actually a full cloud native application protection platform. One of the things that, stood out was the way that the data was modeled and what that actually allowed Wiz to do here, and including the graph query language that they used. It allows you to drill down really nicely and kind of quite powerfully to construct queries, not have to construct a big query to start with, but start with a bit of a query, then filter down more with more query language and more query language. So the kind of data structure really supported that. It also supported lots of context being brought in. So you could bring in vulnerability management data, you could bring in, data from various different third-party platforms and the likes. And this is, I think, a key part of where it really goes beyond configuration management, and that you're actually starting to look at what's happening from a security perspective, not just how is my platform configured. Now, those two things combined, the sort of data model and having all that context, can often make platforms horrendously complex. The visualization was actually one of the pieces that I was most impressed with, in that it allowed you to use that kind of graph database, which creates entity relationships, and then, the context wrapped around those entities to enrich what you know about them. The way it visualized that was actually quite powerful and quite simple. Like a very, probably my favorite view was being able to look at the attack surface coverage and see what's exposed to the internet, but not just the things that are directly exposed to the internet because they've got a public IP address, but what are they talking to behind them, and how are those, how is that stuff behind them, like a database behind it or whatever it might be? How is that actually accessed, and what does that mean in terms of level exposure to the internet, including looking at stuff like, is this, are there any known vulnerabilities for the software running on this as well? So you can kind of get a really good view of your attack surface, what's exposed to the internet, plus that additional layers of data around, well, are there any vulnerabilities on these platforms, and what are the risks? So it kind of makes that data quite actionable, which I think is one of the things we missed in the early CSPM engines. You could kind of end up with a whole lot of data and a whole raft of things that you could go fix, but you didn't really have that enrichment and the sort of visualization, understand, well, what's more important and why, and where am I looking at this from a risk perspective, and then what can I actually go action and address? Probably one other point that I'll just throw out there as well is, the tools these sort of tools can become quite siloed. So they end up, in the domain of the cloud team, and cloud team and the security team don't talk. One of the things that I liked about the Wiz platform is it was a capability that the SOC could use as well. So Wiz acquired a company called Gem Security recently, Gem being a cloud detect and response platform. So you're actually getting alerting through to your cloud team and through to your security team, your SOC team, and alerting that is relevant to them as well, not just, a configuration alert to go chase somebody else for, but actually, a very useful feed from your cloud environments into your SIEM or SOAR, or however, you've architected your SOC. But probably the last piece that I really liked about the platform was the concept of toxic combinations. The toxic combination being where you've got, more than one thing wrong with a asset, and by virtue of the fact you got more than one thing wrong, that's increasing the risk. So you could have a platform that's exposed to the internet, has a vulnerability on it, potentially hasn't been updated, or, has poor, credential management or accesses other systems that are important. So it kind of puts together this picture and goes, here's things that actually have more than one thing wrong with the, and if you're sort of going, how do I go, we put these platforms in because we want to go, secure our environments further and have that assurance that we can track changes and understand, what's happening at any point in time. And I think the nice thing around this is it gave you a really quick way to go, right, what are the things I should be really worried about? And if I go off and look at all the stuff that I'm really worried about first, I can actually probably make some pretty meaningful progress around reducing my overall risk. So toxic combination is probably the real big winner out of it. Not to say that these are, they're all empowered, I guess, by the other pieces that I've talked to, but I just thought that was a really nice concept to go in and focus your efforts on things that could make a big difference pretty quickly. So out the back of it, I guess my probably overall summary would be, if you've looked at CSPM tools in the past and you thought, they're kind of useful, but they kind of only do so much, and the way that they provide you data isn't always that useful, Wiz is absolutely worth a look. It's a pretty interesting platform, certainly one we'll be looking at more at how it can be used with customers. So, it's an interesting journey for them as a company, being 4 years old, and we'll continue to watch where they go from. So thanks for joining us. Hopefully that was useful. And if you were thinking about, Wiz and reading about it, hopefully that's maybe provided you a little bit more information to go away and dig into.